191 obviously was such a significant, I think really a significant reform that built on a lot of other things we've done. I acknowledge Lieutenant Governor Barbara O'Brien for her leadership on all of the education reform issues that we've been able to accomplish over the last 4 sessions. A variety of other things, but in this case, I talked to Barbara yesterday after Senate Bill 191 passed and congratulated her because of the things she's done to lead this effort. We continued to deal with the worst economy since the Great Depression, but we produced a budget that protects essential services, that positions Colorado for sustainable recovery and shares the pain in a balanced and fair way. We asked everyone to share the burden and share in the solutions, and it was a strategy that ultimately worked. We kept the public employee pension fund from becoming insolvent. We put important guardrails around the state's voter-approved medical marijuana program. We protected consumers, strengthened the child welfare system, and we made significant progress on health reform. We enacted major education reforms that will help us meet the goals we set out in 2007, to cut the dropout rate in half, to close the achievement gap, double the number of college degrees earned by Colorado students. We addressed higher ed funding. Education reform. I think people are looking at the teacher tenure bill, and as difficult as that was, that is also the capstone. We've signed several really significant bills that were about education reform over the past 3 years, and then this year, to come back with a bill that really asks the question about how we ensure that the teachers have a performance review system in place and that it impacts probationary and non-probationary status, and that ineffective teachers, we have a way of handling and dealing with ineffective teachers over the next few years. Across the country, states are looking at this, but we got that done, and we got it done after doing a variety of other things.
Cap for K, teacher evaluation, all have pretty long build-out times. Legislature this year delayed some of the Cap for K deadlines. How concerned are you that those initiatives get changed, lose steam over the years as they're built out and implemented?
I have to tell you, I don't think they're going to lose steam. The most important conversation in this country right now is education reform. And you can see that's being driven at the federal level. I think people have gotten to the place of saying a national dropout rate of 25% is intolerable. And our ability to compete internationally is at risk if we don't seriously reform our K-12 system, and if we don't find ways to move a greater population of kids out of K-12 into the higher ed system, get a greater number of kids who are getting 4-year degrees, 2-year degrees, ensure that this workforce is a workforce that can be globally competitive. You cannot back off on education reform if you believe in the competitive edge that we as a nation have to maintain in order to really have the quality of life we've had as Americans. So that's why this was a difficult conversation, but at the end of the day, there may be no more important conversation going forward than education reform. Senate Bill 191, we began with an executive order on educator effectiveness, and part of that was driven by Race to the Top. I think Senator Johnston made a decision about, and the Senate made a decision about when they were going to introduce that bill, and really wanted to see what the outcome of Race to the Top was. I kept telling people that Senate Bill 191 was not about Race to the Top. At the end of the day, it was not driven by that. It was something that we believe should happen. It had to happen. It was going to happen eventually. I'm telling you, in this country, states around the country will ultimately go in this direction that we went with Senate Bill 191. And the timing of that was just, I think, a matter of the Senate deciding they're going to wait and see with Race to the Top and whether there was some added impetus because of the outcome of Race to the Top. It probably did help pass the bill at the end of the day, but I was very clear it wasn't about that. We had a strategy from the very beginning. Para very early on, and try and do it, at a time in a bipartisan fashion, in a time where, legislators were very focused, and they were. And then the Renewable Energy Standard Bill after that, and then House Bill 1365 after that. That was part of our strategy, was to put those 3 bills sort of in place seriatim, but to get one done before the other one was really, up for serious discussion on the floor of the House and the Senate, and it actually worked. It was a great strategy, and I think teacher tenure, because it to some extent divided the Democratic caucus, came at actually a time after these other big things had already been done, and that was quite frankly helpful in passing the other big things at the beginning of the session. After the dust settles, people are going to have to sort of look at that and decide what the nature of the relationship is. The CEA ultimately got to neutral on Senate Bill 191 in the last couple of days, and that was, I think, helpful in just looking at sort of the movement that was occasioned there. The sponsors of that bill worked very hard to listen to the CEA, to listen to their, I think, the issues that were raised by the initial bill, and as it went on. That bill was a much better bill at the end of the day than it was when it started.